Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in 0 sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
There's a million things we have to do today, and worrying doesn't need to be one of them. That's why 1 in 9 families use Life 360 for safety to connect to the people that matter most. Join today and get premium features that keep your family protected with real-time location updates, crash detection, and 24/7 roadside assistance. Because let's face it, you're more than just your to-do list, you're a family. So let's live Life 360. Download for free today.
Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon. Whatever it is where you are, it's a pleasure to be in your ears. This is Slogging It. A number of things tonight. I've got gout, again. We'll no doubt discuss that. Eugene's watching the SA20 again. That's all he seems to care about cricket-wise. We'll probably slag off the ECB. We'll definitely slag off the BCCI. We'll talk a little bit about the Tavs because they're brilliant and some amazing work that Simon's been doing with them. And probably just generally waffle on loosely about cricket for the next half an hour or so. Eugene, dear boy, how the devil are we?
Very, very good. Although very short on cricket at the moment. There's not much going on, is there? I mean, England's not playing India. There's a little bit of cricket in Australia. I haven't really seen much going on in New Zealand. And yeah, there was the small amount of the SA20 final. But other than that, there's not been a lot of cricket. So what are we going to talk about? I'm really interested.
I think we should talk about the first test between New Zealand and South Africa under 13 Zs.
Can you really call that cricket? I mean,
well, from 11 of them, the other 11. I mean, Daniel David D. Beddingham, he did all right in the second dig, didn't he?
Did he? Very good.
Yeah. Did you not watch any of it? Because that actually the play starts at 10:30, so that's a reasonable time to stay up and watch at least a session.
Oh. In actual fact, I've just gone onto Cricket Info and I see that the second test is starting in 43 minutes.
Perfect.
So I might watch some of the second test.
I'll put a bit of that on when I go to bed.
But I mean, what they got pumped, right? 281.
Mate. Awful. So the captain who bowls ropey left arm spin and opens the bat in, and I mean, quite frankly, wouldn't look out of place in the Papwick and Limby 4th 11, which doesn't exist.
Neil Brand.
Yeah, got, I think 6 for in the first innings with said ropey left arm off rollers.
Yeah, going at 4.5 though, which in a test match is quite a lot.
Right, but he was probably the most...
It's not bad compared to everyone else.
Now, Dane Patterson, right, who I've always deemed to be a decent bowler, he's not had the worst international record. He's played a fair bit of white ball cricket and some red ball cricket at test level. Maybe he's just a bit old, I don't know, but struggled. Like, didn't really... I expected him to be the one member of the bowling attack as the senior figure who would kind of stand up and probably bowl quite well, but just didn't really.
Yeah,
and then
I mean, there was
the keeping bowling attack. It was him away.
Dwayne Olivier.
Yeah.
Him and Dwayne Olivier are the two. Yeah, those are the two that people would have expected. But I mean, yeah, when you send in a second 11. Well, can you even call it a second 11? Because most of the second 11 was still playing in the SA20. No disrespect to those guys, by the way.
No, look, it's great for them to get international experience, but crikey. Yeah. I mean, you know, when we were talking, I think Simon Gower, I think, mentioned this. Like, you know, it's a real problem for South African cricket Well, he talks more in depth about the West Indies, whereas in the T20s they can make $1 million for one game, whereas a Test match they lose money. So, and we know that similar would be the case in South Africa, other than when England go, because everybody who's English wants to go to South Africa. Why? Because it's brilliant. But it's a pretty poor state of affairs for Cricket South Africa, isn't it? Like, to send an absolute ramshackle team of the kind of best lads who haven't been picked up in the SA20, who aren't on holiday, who haven't decided that they're washing their hair or to go to the shops, and who fancy a little jaunt to New Zealand. I mean, Si, you must, the most opinionated of opinionated people, especially certainly out of the three of us, are you scratching out the long run today, or you kind of just trundling it?
I think the problem is that through what other teams do and what other teams have done whilst playing against the perceived minnows. So you look at like when England have played Ireland, they've often rested their better players. Now, that's what that then does, and these are still, Ireland are now a tier 1 nation, they've got test status, so what that then does is mean that the ICC don't have a leg to stand on in terms of people sending their best sides when that's been allowed to happen. When England did it, for example, when there wasn't any other cricket on, they did it in the middle at the start of the English summer when they had 4 players at the IPL, but other than that, they were just resting guys. Yeah. So they've kind of been backed into a corner a little bit. I cannot blame Cricket South Africa for doing it because, like Lord Gower said the other day, that SA20 is going to make them an absolute fortune. It's been played in front of full stadiums. It's going to make a lot of money, and they know that that's going to pay the majority of the South African cricketers' wages in terms of their revenue. They're not going to make any money from a tour, a 3-test tour, whatever it is, to New Zealand. The only people that should be potentially be disappointed is the New Zealand public, who I personally thought that would have been quite a good series. Like, if you get a full strength South Africa going to New Zealand, the way New Zealand are playing at the minute, you're looking at that going, that could be a good game. And for me, it's just that tipping point in Test cricket at the minute. And like when we spoke about it the other week, we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. It's where the ICC have got us, for me, stand up and start getting hold of the schedule a bit better, and start giving these brackets for Test cricket. Say to these countries, look, you can have your franchise stuff, but we need this 2 to 3 months period, whatever it might be, and move it around if necessary. South Africa, the weather in South Africa is pretty decent most of the year round. It doesn't need to be played in the middle. I know they play rugby in the winter, but they can do what they do in India and play the majority of the year round. There's no reason why they couldn't ask for the SA20 to be moved to November when there isn't actually that much cricket on.
It's like,
so you could say to the ICC, look, can we work with these people to manipulate it a little bit more? And then you manage your tours accordingly. So you say to South Africa, look, you'll give Australia the big bash but that's when you perhaps host a New Zealand v South Africa Test series. Because you're going to go, right, we understand that not many of them, probably only 3 or 4 of both their major tested players are going to be out, so that you can get a reasonable sides out. Maybe that could be a way of doing it. I don't know. I think, unfortunately, it's been backed into a corner at the minute, and I don't see a way out of it. We all know that there's only 3 nations that play Test cricket and make money from it.
Agreed.
So it's
so a couple of things. Have New Zealand booked the trend by not resting players against a perceived weaker nation, because they've in effect played near enough their full strength side, which maybe in order to give them some confidence and absolutely batter them. I don't know. Maybe that's a conscious decision on their part. I agree that Cricket South Africa can't be held accountable for. I'm not saying that the SA20 is a bad competition at all, but I'm not sure whether the scheduling of the tours is down to the ICC, I think that, Cricket South Africa would have known that this was coming. And also, when we were talking to Gower, he was saying about a window for Test cricket. Now, if the trade-off is having a window over not having any Test cricket, then a window's a great thing. But you don't want, as he said, Test cricket to become compartmentalised to a window for the benefit of T20 and other white ball cricket format. I don't know where I sit with that. I just think it's a real shame for South African cricket and for, avid cricket watchers like the three of us, and, we're certainly not the only three, I watched a bit of it and I'm like, oh my God, I kind of felt a bit embarrassed for the poor South African lads because they're getting melted everywhere. Kane Williamson got 200s in the match, one in each innings. Ravindra, that's right. Got 240 in the first dig. It just didn't. I just think it's not. There's so much good coming out of Test cricket at the minute in the way that it's being played, and that has been so one-sided. I almost think that's a massive negative. Like, you'd almost be better off not playing it than playing it the way that first Test played out. Huge.
I think for the New Zealand fans, they would have liked to go and watch New Zealand play cricket, irrespective of who they were playing against. That's the one thing I'd say is New Zealand, thankfully, did put out their full strength side. Would have been really odd if they didn't, to be fair, because it is a home Test nation and they are playing against it. I mean, they would have done the same if it was against a Zimbabwe or a Bangladesh or a Sri Lanka or Ireland or somebody they perceived to walk over. They would still put their first 11 out. So from my perspective, it's good for New Zealand cricket. Just, as you rightfully say, pretty poor from South African cricket. I do know that they did try to have it moved, but just looking at the schedule, New Zealand couldn't fit it in anywhere else. So, they made the request based on, it was interesting listening to you guys talk to David and how he said it's the commercial reality that we live in now, unfortunately. Money talks when it comes to these sort of things. And that SAT20 is paying for a lot more than this Test series will pay for.
I know, Robert, you wanted to come in. Just before you do we think that the pressure of the World Test Championship is playing a part in having to get these games played in order to play everyone that you need to play over that 4 or 5 year cycle? And so that's almost forced Cricket South Africa into sending a side regardless of how strong or weak it was.
The problem that you've got with Test cricket at the minute is it doesn't matter what the format of the Test series is, you're going to have issues because people are moaning that there's not enough 5-match series. Well, a 5-match series takes two,
by the way.
So this is a 2-match series. Yeah. So what you've got is the commercial aspect of trying to make it. Like most of these countries want to play Test cricket. They're trying their best to make it so that people are exposed to Test cricket. However, commercially within these countries, it doesn't work. So they're standing there and you're going, right, okay, all the traditionalists are going, oh, we need more 5 Test match series. But if Cricket New Zealand, for example, are losing £500,000, $500,000, whatever it might be, X amount per Test match, whereas for a 6-match T20 series, which can be done in 2 weeks, they're making $10 million. Well, it's a no-brainer. So this is where, for me, both sides of the debate, so to speak, the cricket traditionalists, and there needs to be a middle ground, whether that be 3-match series, whether that be trying to curtail these short format tournaments. I personally think they last too long, and as a professional sportsman within them, they're not playing often enough. Why aren't we having 2 games a day? Why aren't they managing it so there's less travel? The World Cup in India, for example, where England are doing 1,000 miles between on travel days and playing every 3 days. The logistics of that is just silly. Play it at less grounds, make it so people have got to travel less. And then you look at the Big Bash, for example, it's played in 4 cities fundamentally. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities plus Hobart. But you look at how they do it with Hobart, and they play a lot of their games like at sort of back to back. So people will go over there and then it come back and it's shorter. It's certainly this time. So you're standing there going, is there a way that we can condense these short format tournaments, but also not expecting the Ashes, for example, is always going to be 5 tests. England, India is always going to be 5 tests. But let's try and make it so that we can have maybe a 3-test series or a 4-test match series in the gap in the middle by slightly more condensing these short format tournaments and making it so the players do have to play a bit more often, because it's gone from one extreme to the other, hasn't it? We've gone from cricketers bowling 150 overs every fortnight to now people playing 3 T20s a week and saying they're working hard. Well, you've only 12 overs, guys. I understand there's a bit of practice, but you're bowling 12 overs a week in competitive cricket. And they're saying, oh, we're overdone. And for me, I'm a person that used to bowl. And that's, yes, I had a stress fracture, and that was arguably one of the reasons. But even after my stress fracture, I could still bowl 45, 50, 60 overs a week. So it's not like, yes, the quality might not quite be there. So they've got to find, but for me, they've got to find a balance, and they've got to find whether it's double headers, whether it's something that comes about there's going to be a lot of people having their say on it.
We've discussed this before, and I don't know if we ever came to a conclusion on it or an answer in full, or a definite answer. World Test Championship, in order for it to be fair, should all teams have to play the same amount of games against each other that would count? I know it's difficult because we're Northern Hemisphere and everyone else typically is Southern, and we tend to play a lot more Test cricket, but we could play the same amount of Test cricket that we do, but within that 4 or 5 year cycle, have to play a certain amount of tests against everybody. Now, whether that's 2 tests or whatever, but I think the fairest way to determine a World Test Championship is for everybody to play the same amount of tests against each nation. Second point, would we rather see, than a 2-test series, a 1-test series, because at least you're more likely to get a positive result one way or the other? I think all test series should be, and I know that you could have, in a 3-test series, you could have a 1-all draw, you could have a 2-all draw in a 5-test series, but it would encourage, as we've seen with the Australia-West Indies series, they played a 2-test series, it's 1-all, everybody's crying out for them to go again. Now, if that 3rd test ends up being a draw, then fair enough, but at least they both had the opportunity to go in and try and win series. What do we think?
I think, look, the reason why people were clamouring for an additional test match is because it was good cricket. If it was a 2-test series and at the end of the day, people are going to look back at this New Zealand v South Africa test series and go, 2 test matches was too much. The Ashes series that we had in the summer, people could formulate an argument that 5 test matches wasn't enough because it was competitive. If it's competitive, I don't think people care how many test matches there are. Yes, they also want there to be a winner. But I don't know. Back to your first point, again, it's trying to match up this idyllic scenario where your World Test Championship is 100% fair and England will play the same amount of test matches against Ireland, for example, as they would do against Australia. But commercially, that ain't going to work. Commercially, like we've seen South Africa, in these countries where Test cricket doesn't get the same amount of attendance. I mean, you even go to the MCG, for example, on Boxing Day this year, and it wasn't full. However, for the Ashes, there's 90,000 people there, guaranteed, nailed on. Unless Australia play in India or England, they're not filling that stadium. So it just you can sit and go, yes, in an idyllic world, we would play each other the same amount of times. But when England play the West Indies over here, every ground is not sold out.
But then doesn't that make it?
And that's here.
Yeah, but then does that not put everything at par with the other countries who are struggling financially to host Test cricket? Like my question,
yeah, but it's Well,
my question,
the ECB and the ICC, yeah.
I mean, my question is very much more based on what's the fairest way to run the World Test Championship, and I don't think anybody could argue, like you say, idyllic scenario that everybody played everybody the same amount of times, because that is the only way to get a fair result, right? Now, of course, that would probably mean that there are no 5 Test match series. because you wouldn't, if every test series had to be 5 tests, there's not enough time in the calendar for everybody to get around over. What is the World Test Championship now? It's like 2 or 3 years, maybe if it was 4 or
2.
Right.
23 to 2025.
Right. So it would then mean that actually maybe it'd have to be a 5-year cycle. But surely that would be the fairer way of actually finding out who the best test side during a period is. Or maybe they're saying that we can only really measure how good a side is over a 2-year period. Maybe any side would have too much change within it, people retiring, new players coming in, injuries, whatever, over a 5-year cycle to make that right. But surely the key thing about being the best side in anything, people are always looking for longevity, right? So actually, a longer cycle would promote that in terms of better sides having to be the best for a longer period of time. So it kind of ticks all boxes for me. I don't know if you guys agree with that, disagree. It's an open discussion.
It's interesting watching or looking at this World Test Championship and looking at the schedule just for 2024, because as I said, the Test Championship is 23 to 25, but England have 17 test matches, and I know the schedules aren't complete. South Africa, Bangladesh, and are playing 4 test matches according to the schedule right now compared to 17. And again, like I said, I do know South Africa play tests towards the end of the year, but we don't know who they're playing against or those schedules. So, this is England up until September.
They ain't playing 13 in 3 months, are they?
No. Australia is the next best. They're playing 12, and then it's India, obviously. I mean, West Indies, funny enough, are fourth with 7 test matches. But then, everyone else, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, they've both got 6. It's weird. And like I said, I'm conscious that this is not the full schedule because there are going to be more test matches that come towards the end of the year.
Okay. So
it just so happens that England have all of theirs on the table right now.
So next question then. Let's say, like Simon says, there's no way that South Africa are ever going to be able to catch up to the amount of test cricket that England's going to play, right? And I get that. People are really engaged with test cricket in England at the moment because of, Bazball or whatever you want to call it. And that's fine. But I just disagree with there being such a massive disparity between all of it, because I don't think it offers a fair level playing field for everybody. Next point, with England playing so many more than everybody else, I know we're on a bit of a crest of a wave and we're playing really good cricket at the moment, but does that offer more opportunity for England to fail more? It would actually be tougher for England to be consistent across all of it. So let's say Australia are playing 12 and win 12, highly unlikely, but possible. England are playing 17, win 12. Well, Australia's win rate's miles better, isn't it? So they're going to be perceived to be a better side than England.
Brought to you by eBay Authenticity Guarantee. Everyone deserves real. Brought to you by eBay Authenticity Guarantee. Everyone deserves real. Brought to you by eBay Authenticity Guarantee. Everyone deserves real.
So let's go back to the 2021. Oh, yeah. So you're spot on there, because the 21 to 23 World Test Championship, England played 3 tests more, won the same amount of games as Australia, but Australia played obviously 3 less. So percentages, it works in percentage wins. So to your point, the more games
like
you
a
play,
mix,
the more
isn't it?
opportunity you have to lose.
There's a point system as well, and the over 8s England bowl out, they're on negative points all the time anyway. So the number of tests they play, all it does is mean that England get further into the minus. So it's. I think the World Test Championship is the biggest crock of shit in the history of the world.
There he is. There's the love one. I knew if I poked him hard enough, often enough, he was going to say something.
Well, no, that's just. It's a thing just to have a game played at Southampton. I mean, come on.
I mean, let's be honest though. Thank fuck we didn't have to walk there last summer, or Durham.
I was about to say that.
Let's not
Cardiff.
Let's not glamorize. Let's not think it's a thing created. The reason why England playing 17 Test matches is because when England tour other countries, the crowds are bigger because England take the ball in the army. They take a massive touring, traveling out thing. Like it's purely financial. You look how How many people are clamouring for South Africa to tour there? They're not, because they don't take the travelling support. How many people are coming for the West Indies to go, other than England, because we've got a massive local West Indian population that will come out and support them. But England and the Barmy Army take thousands of people on every trip. It doesn't matter whether it's to Pakistan, whether it's to Sri Lanka, to Bangladesh, to Australia. They're taking thousands and thousands of people. We're fortunate. We know some of them. So we know they're going to go. And you've seen what happens to the local economies. You've seen what happens to everything. So England are always going to play more Test cricket. It makes financial sense for India to be up there as well, because the TV rights alone to sell back into India make countries an absolute fortune.
I completely agree.
We're sitting there. For me, it's just an absolute. What was wrong with you? You look back over the time periods when we've been watching cricket, for example. And the West Indies were just coming out of being the number one side in the world. And there was a test ranking. Everyone knew who the best side in the world was because they were number one. And then there was that series, for example, where Kevin Peterson and had his thing with Texgate, and South Africa beat England to go over. And so there was still a competitive test series between test nations number 1 and 2. You didn't need a championship at a neutral ground that no one gave a flying fuck about, that Australia used as a warm-up game.
Yeah. But I completely agree with you. But what I'm saying is, should all of them count towards the World Test Championship? I guess that's the crux of my question.
I wouldn't have them counting towards it because I wouldn't have it.
There we go.
I'd just get rid of it and have a test ranking system that they used. They had it for 50 years and it worked fine. But then someone went, "Oh, we need a championship that no one gives a shit about." People don't think about going, "Oh, we're third in the table." They've gone, "Well, we've won 3-1, we've drew 2-2, we've talked about this, right? Yeah, great." You still have the rankings, but then there's this World Test Championship that's just thrown in. So. And then you sit and go, right, yeah.
What are you trying to say, Eugene?
Sorry. Remember, in the last Test Championship, there was New Zealand played tests that didn't count towards the World Test Championship. So there are games that do not count towards the World Test Championship because, from a finance point of view, getting teams across apparently to New Zealand anyway. Because I remember, I think it was against South Africa too, funny enough. It was just a two test match series where they toured and it didn't count towards it. I remember thinking to myself, well, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. What is the point? Yeah. I mean, it seems daft that 3 morons like us can look at this and go, well, something doesn't kind of add up here. Like, this could be made much more simple and a much better way of actually being able to recognise who the best side in the world is over a cycle by making some pretty simple adjustments.
Do you know what it does do? It does make sure that the lesser nations are playing more Test cricket, though. I will say that.
But you don't need a championship to do that. What you need is the ICC you just need the ICC to construct the schedule properly, to create the schedule properly, to make it so that they're playing an amount of Test cricket. You still have number 1 side, number 2 side, number 3 side in the world. But you just have a schedule that's created to make it so the rankings are accurate.
Going back to what Gower said, right, and Gower touched on this, not directly, but when referring to the ICC, and he was going on about how they kept the initials but keep changing the actual wording within it and whatever, he says, in effect, they're an event planning or a meeting planner because they plan these meetings. But they have no power within these meetings because, they'll just get outvoted by the big countries who do hold all the power. So I don't think it's that easy for the ICC to go, actually, hold on a minute.
How many test series got cancelled because they thought, don't want to do it? Now they can't. They lose the points. So from my perspective, this gives them a drive for the Bangladeshers, the smaller nations to actually play more Test cricket because, again, just going back to the 21-23 Test Championship, when last did you see Bangladesh playing 16 Test matches? When last did you see
So
the West Indies playing?
Who was it
70%
against?
games.
Who was it against?
India, West Indies, Sri Lanka, South Africa, New Zealand, Pakistan.
Right.
He
So
was really hoping you were going to
my
say
point-
England then.
Well, no, but the point is they've not played England, so how can it be a championship?
Well, that's
Yeah, agreed.
my
But
exact point.
either
get
way you
that.
look at it, they're playing 3 test series against Ireland. You've now got Afghanistan and Ireland playing in that, and they're just playing against each other. You've got Afghanistan playing a test series at the minute.
Yeah.
Like that no one knows of. Like, what if you're gonna? The schedule and the championship are 2 completely different things.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, if you don't need the championship to have a good schedule, you can still create a good schedule, but just have your rankings working in the background. And so at the end of the 2-year period, at the end of the test cycle period, you go, all right, this side's number 1 in the world.
Mm.
Currently, this side isn't the number 1 side in the world. We know that because and they try and create this false narrative where they hold it in England in May, for goodness, in April and May. So the 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a draw, and the side that finished first in the thing are going to win it anyway.
Yeah.
So
Gentlemen,
what's the point?
Gentlemen, I feel like we could talk on this for a long time, and we would welcome any comments that listeners have got on this. But I feel like we've probably done 20 minutes on this already, so we do need to move on because we've got a huge amount of time left. So, more visa issues in India. This time, however, not caused by the BCCI or political agendas. This time caused by more buffoonery at the ECB. So, poor old Rahan has got flown over to the UAE for a few days R&R with the rest of the squad, probably seen a bit of family and so on and so forth. Flies back to India. Sorry, mate, you're not coming in. Why? Because I'm of Pakistani descent. That can't be right, because I was here last week. No. No, you know that single entry visa that you had for the World Cup that was still valid, but you didn't use because you didn't actually come? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, you've had your single entry, so now off you go, sweet cheeks. Now, sense has prevailed. The Indians have actually let him into the country, or he's a bit like Tom Hanks and sleeping in the airport, hoping for Catherine Zeta-Jones to turn up. But that would be funny. Can you imagine if Rahan Ahmed was sleeping on the seat?
And it's a fair plan.
In a closed bit of some regional airport in India, waiting for these visa issues to be sorted. But no, it seems that he is with the England team. They have let him in whilst they're trying to sort out these visa issues. So sense has prevailed with this. But I mean, every time you think the ECB is beginning to start getting things right, and I'm a big fan of Tomo and Goldie are obviously the 2 top boys there now, and I've said, very openly before that I think they're the 2 best people to drive the ECB forward and try and clean up some of the mess that was left by fellow Taverner Tom Harrison. Sorry, Mark. How can this have been an oversight? Like, surely someone is responsible for going, has everyone got the right visa? We know that they're going to play 2 tests, then go away for a week and then go back. Has everyone got everything they need in order for that to be absolutely fine? I mean, someone must be shitting bricks about their job, because that is terrible. How can that be allowed to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the best in terms of organisation. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's loads of things you can ask a question of. The trips in and out of Abu Dhabi and stuff are okay, fine.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Why? Like, there's lots of questions, but yeah, someone's not covered themselves in glory there, have they? I mean, even to the point with the issues at the start of the series, there's going to be issues. It's not like it's a shock that there's visa issues going into India. So you'd have thought someone early doors in proceedings might go, hang on a minute, we've got a couple of lads here that there might be some, let's just double check that and make sure we've got that right. Let's get down to the old Indian embassy. and go, right, yep, is this all right? Is this paperwork acceptable? Yeah. I mean, you can get a passport in the same day. You can get a visa on the same day if you walk into the embassy. Yet we can't seem to organise one at 4 days' notice or 2 months' notice in some cases. It's not. So I don't know. Not the May West.
Not the May West. I'm glad you said that, because when he said best earlier, I was like, that's not the phrase he uses when he means to say best. He always says May West. But now you've done it, so I feel better about myself. Moving on to India, Eugene. No KL Rahul. We're going to see another debutant, potentially 3 debutants batting 4, 5 and 6 for India, as Devdutt Padikkal has been called up. Interestingly, I'm surprised that so Shreyas Iyer has been not named in the 17-man squad for the final 3 tests of the series, which although we hadn't had a great 2 tests, great 4 knocks, I mean, that Indian batting lineup, certainly with no Kohli coming back for the rest of the series, now seems a bit like a soft underbelly, right?
Well, not for India. I mean, in Indian conditions, because surely they're unbeatable no matter who they select, right? Isn't that the way India play cricket? Yeah, look, I get what you're saying, though. Harsh for him to be dropped, but not unfair, given that we did mention in the second review of the test that he hadn't. I think he was averaging
26, I think, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, not unsurprising. And do you know what? How often have they stuck with people in India? Maybe they've got this small tournament called the IPL, which is showing them a bunch of new superstars that are, cross-format players. So, maybe they want to blood some new players in tests 3, 4, and 5. So, and again, I'd like to see England's test selection policy for the 3rd test to see if they actually are going to select more than one seamer. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think so. I can't remember who was telling me about this, or maybe telling us about this at some point. But they were saying it might have been a coach who's been out and had IPL experience, and someone was asking them about the levels and how good these guys are, and they were like, "There's no way of trying to slide someone in the back door in terms of like as an overseas, because forget the guys that you actually see and the guys that are in the squad. There's another 10 world beaters on the periphery of the squad that you never even fucking get to see. And these guys are insanely good, like, incredible cricketers. So I agree with you. There are, these lads coming into the test side are no mugs. That's for absolute sure. I just think that there's a lot of pressure in the, 1-1 going into the 3rd test of a massive test series for both countries, where India are very much expected to win the series, but I think are probably a little bit frightened about the proposition of England and what England have brought to the test series so far, to then go, right, 4, 5, 6, who will have had 3 tests between them when they start. If Padikkal does actually take to the field on the first day of the next test, then yeah, between those 3 lads, one will have 2 tests, one will have a debut, and the other one's never played a test before. So if England can get through a struggling Rohit Sharma, let's be honest, he's not had a great series so far. Shubman Gill, well, he's been a bit up and down. Yes, 100 in the match winning 100, you'd say, in the 4th innings of the 2nd test. And Jaiswal, who's been phenomenal, quite frankly, and he's been a real exciting watch. But it's a bit of a risk for India, I think, to leave Shreyas Iyer out. I think someone who's played a fair bit of Test cricket now, he's obviously an absolute jet of a multi-format player, has had his struggles in the first 2 tests, as we say, only averaging probably 25, 26. I think they might regret that decision to leave a little bit more experience out, but we shall see. Sorry?
Very young, these players, eh?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Shreyas is 29, so he's not the youngest guy in the world. They brought that Patidar in for the last test. He was averaging 70 in the last 2 years of domestic cricket in India. And to be fair to Shreyas, he's only played 14 tests. I think we think of him as having played a lot more than that. But, I mean, like you said, I can remember talking to, I think, Paul Franks that we were talking to a while ago about the guys that are coming up behind him. And if they've got it, I mean, they've got players coming out of their ears, haven't they? They've got lots of people, and they they trust themselves to chuck them in, because they, at the end of the day, they know if someone does sink, they've got, like I say, 20 more just to reel in the background. Shreyas is averaging 37 in Test cricket.
Mm.
And that Indian side will be looking at it going, that ain't good enough, captain.
Yeah.
Like that. That's, whereas we're in a very different boat. Oh, we're looking at someone that's played 14 Test matches and averaging 37, going, right, that's a good start.
Mm.
They're looking at it going,
nah.
No.
Yeah.
On you go. We've got someone averaging 70 in first class cricket. We've got a 22-year-old that's got X amount of runs in the IPL. We've got
Hold on, the lad who's averaging 70 in the didn't get picked in the last game.
He didn't play.
He was the one that didn't get selected, which was, I thought, I agree with you, because I was a little bit dumbfounded by that. I was like, hold on, how's this guy? They brought him in as he's the guy that's, got this amazing record, and he didn't play.
You probably find he's getting used to the squad, right?
The what?
Get him in for the second test.
Rajat Patidar.
You're going to play in the third test.
No,
Rajat Patidar is the guy that.
No, I don't think it is. I think you will find that the bloke who's got that amazing average did not play in that second test. But, and we'll research that, and if I'm wrong, which I know I'm not, then I'll make a formal apology to you on the air next week, or you can just apologise to me now. But anyway, reason to be optimistic for England, which is positive. Right, we have taken 40 minutes of your time. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you choosing us for this 40 minutes, or however much of it you listen to. Don't forget to give us a like, give us a share, follow us. Simon looks like he's got something to say, but I'm not interested. I'm about to close this podcast down. Thank you so much again.
It was just a question for the next week.
Oh, go on.
That we can have a think about.
Go on.
If you could sign one cricketer, I'll give you one all-time cricketer and one modern cricketer to be the overseas player at your club.
Yeah.
Or club professional. Who would it be? I'll let you leave on it till next week. We'll see if the listeners get involved.
Yeah, perfect.
Who they want. Obviously, there's going to be some names thrown out.
Yeah.
Isn't there? So who would you want? Your club professional. You can sign anyone.
Two.
Money's no object.
You
can choose one all-time.
Yeah, and one current.
And then one active playing now.
Perfect. Okay, well, I'd be the all-time because I've retired. And I'll have to think about currently playing. Probably Eugene, I think. No, in all seriousness. Thanks, guys. See you next week. Love you. Bye.
Say goodbye. Cheers. Bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
If you own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles and have an auto warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all, listen up. CarShield has a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that covers more parts than ever. Visit carshield.com/audio to find out how you could pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Get your free quote today at carshield.com/audio. That's carshield.com/audio.